discussion this morning? Okay, maybe there's no need for questions. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, because your hand was hidden behind Johnny. Okay, Allison.
Okay, it's working. Okay. Bhante, I have a question. When you talk about recollection, the way you say this morning, you said the recollection is mindfully repeated over and over again on an object from different aspects or angles. Could you elaborate about from different aspects, from different angles? Because from one pointedness of concentration, when we talk about mindfulness, a lot of times it's singularly looking at one object. So when you are talking about from different perspectives, different aspects, different angles, can you elaborate that a little bit? Thank you.
What are you seeing? No. What I'm holding up.
Hat.
No, be completely straightforward. Okay. What are you seeing? What are you seeing? No. Being serious, yeah. Okay. So you're seeing it from different points of view. Okay, so one is doing recollection of the Buddha, right? So we have 9 qualities. So one can be considered, this is just taking one example. One could be recollecting the Buddha as from the aspect of Arahat, aspect Arahat, perfectly enlightened one who possesses clear knowledge and conduct, one who has gone well, that's the Sugata, knower of the world, and so on. So we have 9 qualities. So when one is doing Buddhanusati, recollection of the Buddha, one is turning over in the mind these 9 qualities or aspects of the Buddha. When one does recollection of the Dhamma, one has well-taught as the Dhamma, sanditiko, it's visible, akaliko, not involving time, and so on. So 6 aspects, 9 aspects of the Sangha, and then also the others, virtuous conduct, generosity. Each of them has, different aspects that one is bringing to mind in the recollection. And generally, the way I found that it works, suppose one is this is the way I've worked with recollection of the Buddha, starting off with the 9 qualities, and so one is getting a pretty round picture, pretty full picture, but then to bring it closer to concentration, to collect the mind, then at a certain point one will drop all but 3, the 3 that are most prominent and that seem most meaningful to oneself, and then goes over those 3. Then out of the 3, 1 might stand out as more prominent, so one will drop the other 2 and just focus on the 1. But even when you're focusing on 1, because you've already gone through the 9, so you have what I would call the resonances or the echoes or the shadows of the other 8 qualities sort of absorbed into the 1 quality that one is focusing on.
Bhante, I have a question regarding the precepts. So every morning before our meditation practice, I do recite the 8 precepts. And yesterday morning on my way to work, I had a deer jump out of the woods and I killed it.
Yeah.
So I feel very happy about having killed a being.
Yeah.
Before I've killed a mosquito, maybe not felt so bad, but now I have a heavy feeling of taking this deer that I had no intention to kill, but I did.
Yeah. Well, first, because it was completely unintentional, it's no violation of the precept. The precept is only referring to intentional actions. So you don't have to feel any guilt or sense that you violated the precept, that you transgressed the precept. Of course, it was the deer who jumped out. You didn't go out of your way to kill a deer. But of course, naturally one feels saddened when you see the death of especially a gentle, non-aggressive creature, harmless creature like a deer. So you could just sort of, to clear your mind, you could just do, maybe with the evening meditation, just a couple of minutes, may that deer have passed to a good rebirth, and sort of extend loving kindness towards the deer, the deceased deer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. So it seems to me that there's a progression of uplifting the mind with joy, leading to eventually samadhi and panya.
Yeah.
But this isn't a teaching we hear much today. This idea of passing through an uplifted mind and joy as a necessary prerequisite, really, for samadhi.
Yeah, I think maybe
panya. Can you say something about that?
Maybe this is because the way Theravada Buddhist meditation has sort of come into the United States, or more broadly the West, is through people who have practiced in Burma or in lineages stemming from Burma, which emphasize the practice of dry insight meditation, based on the Satipatthana Sutta. And so there's actually not explicit mention of joy within that sutta, but I think even as one practices intensely, even in the dry insight method, those states do arise, and they come in under what are called the vipassana upakilesa, the corruptions of insight, which include the states of joy, upliftment, exhilaration, very strong tranquility, equanimity, quick working of knowledge. And the reason that they're called corruptions is not that they are bad in themselves, but when people go through those states, they can become attached to them, and then they don't continue to contemplate with insight. And so it's that attachment that makes them corruptions. But those states do arise even in the method of dry insight. But in the way of explaining the dry insight method, the teachers will say just, note whatever you're experiencing. When breathing in, be aware of breathing in. Breathing out, be aware of breathing out. If you hear sounds, be aware of hearing. If your mind wanders, be aware of wandering. If you feel pain in the legs, be aware of pain. If you're fantasizing about your next meal, be aware of thinking of the meal. So that's the mode of instruction. And these recollections, I think, probably have not received very much attention. But I say, like in a traditional Buddhist country, at least in Sri Lanka, there's a lot of emphasis on these recollections.
Aren't these the 7 factors of enlightenment?
Actually, some of those factors that are mentioned here correspond to the 7 factors of enlightenment. So we have especially the piti, that's what's translated as the rapture, was very strong joy, and passaddhi, tranquility, and then, of course, samadhi. Those are 3 of the factors of enlightenment. Yes.
So my question is, so the 5 precepts, I feel like sometimes there's a sense that it's what you're not doing.
Yeah.
But is the practice of a 5 precept like something that is active? Like you're putting in effort to refrain? Or is it just like not doing, kind of passively, like not doing?
Yeah. The way it's formulated in the 5 precepts, it's formulated negatively, because the emphasis there, I think, is in the starting point. One wants to cut out what is unwholesome. Mm-hmm. So that's the way it's put in the 5 precepts. But there's another collection of sort of moral guidelines, which is elaborated more in the suttas. These are called the 10 ways of wholesome action. And there you see, the 5 precepts are formulas. It's just like one sentence for each. But in explaining the 10 ways of wholesome action, then the Buddha, he's not using just the simple formula, but he's giving some explanation. So he'll start off and say, here the disciple abandons the destruction of life, abstains from the destruction of life, and instead he dwells kindly, conscientious, compassionate for the welfare of all living beings. And then similarly for abstaining from stealing, then the counterpart is that one dwells honestly, with pure intention. For abstaining from sexual misconduct, there it just elaborates the people that the person doesn't have sexual relations with. And I have to say, in the ancient texts, it's always done from the standpoint of the man, but one can make correspondent adjustments to understand how the woman observes. Okay, then for abstaining from false speech, following that, then it says that one lives devoted to truth, intent upon truth, no deceiver of the world. Yeah, so there one finds the positive counterparts to the abstentions.
I also remember reading one sutta where they were talking about non-doing and doing, how the teachings were about the non-doing of unwholesome and
I see.
Yeah. So it's I kind of wonder if there's like also a sense of both like actively refraining, and also a passive not doing. So it's like, if that makes any sense.
Say again.
So like, I remember, I think the context was somebody asked if the teachings were like not doing.
Yeah.
And he said, it
is
not doing.
This is because, you see, this is, in a sense, that passage is dealing with a certain kind of wordplay.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was one of the concepts that had taken root in the ascetic communities, was the idea of, they call it Akiriyavada, the doctrine of not doing.
Mm-hmm.
So here the idea is that the ideal is to avoid activity, to avoid, as much as possible, to avoid activity, because any activity, it's believed by this particular sect, is creating karma.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of keeping one in bondage. So the ideal is just to reduce one's activity to the minimum. So this Brahmin asked the Buddha whether he teaches a doctrine, Akiriyavada, which, from the Buddha's own standpoint, Akiriyavada is somewhat like a heresy. But he says, there is a sense in which I teach Akiriyavada.
Yeah.
I teach the not doing of unwholesome action by body, speech, and mind. But in another sense, I teach Akiriyavada, the doctrine of doing, that is doing good deeds by body, speech, and mind.
Mm-hmm.
Your name again? I'm sorry, I have a bad memory.
Bhante, my name is Ken.
Ken, that's right.
We come down from Cobleskill on Saturdays. Cobleskill, New York, upstate.
Cobleskill,
Cobleskill,
I don't know. Yeah.
Ken.
Yeah.
This morning, in the interest of time, you kind of skipped over the mindfulness of breathing recollection.
Yeah.
Which may, in fact, be the most important of the 10 recollections, as spelled out by the Buddha in the Anapanasati Sutta.
Yeah.
As it fulfills the 4 foundations of mindfulness, as well as the 7 factors of enlightenment. So I just didn't know if you might want to just talk a little bit about the mindfulness of breathing.
Yeah, I didn't want to go into it because if you take mindfulness of breathing, then it becomes like an hour-long discourse in itself. I think I treated it in the Majjhima Nikaya course in detail. So if you go onto YouTube, it's Majjhima Nikaya number 118, and there's quite a lot of literature actually on the Anapanasati. So, I don't want to go into any kind of elaborate explanation of it now.
Okay,
if you have a specific question, you could ask.
No, I just didn't, for someone who was, I just felt like it was an important recollection, and I didn't want it to be just overlooked.
Yeah, no, it's extremely important.
It's just that we don't have really time to go into it.
Yeah, it's extremely fundamental, but I wanted to take, over these 2 classes, I wanted to take those recollections which are not so familiar, which are not explained very much in the regular literature. But we have a lot of books, like, I think there might be for free distribution here, Mindfulness in Plain English. This is Bhante Gunaratana. It's also published by Wisdom Publications, uses mindfulness of breathing as the basis. A lot of material on mindfulness of breathing.
Just want to tell, if you go to YouTube, Google MN space 118, that will be the first hit with Bhante's lecture on the sutra.
It's in number 10. In the Majjhima course here, I didn't do number 10 because I did Majjhima 10 in the previous course, which was in the Buddha's words. That you'll find, I might have done the Anapanasati Sutta there too. It's the blue disc, which should be available in the big Buddha hall. And also, I probably did it in the Bodhi Monastery series, which is the brown DVD. Okay, if there are no more questions. What? You had?
I'm sorry, I'm looking and looking because I didn't want to ask, but now I have to ask because I can't find it.
Yeah.
What are the qualities of the Buddha that you would meditate on? What are those? Was it 6 or 9? 9 qualities of the Buddha. What are they?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I missed that retreat.
Oh.
Just briefly, just briefly.
Oh, you weren't here during the summer, last summer.
I missed that one.
Oh.
So sorry.
Okay, you find that the formula is in the text.
Okay.
Not in the sutta, but okay. Itiviso Arahang, so the worthy one, the perfectly enlightened one who possesses clear knowledge and good conduct. Sugata is literally well gone. I translate freely, the fortunate one. Knower of the world. Unsurpassed trainer of persons to be tamed. Teacher of devas and human beings. The enlightened one. And Bhagava, the blessed one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've understood that there's another meaning for the word sati, which is to remember.
Yeah, that's actually true.
You
yeah.
Sort of clarify the relationship between memory or remembering and mindfulness.
Yeah, the word sati or the verb sarati originally has a sense of to remember, and it's used in that sense in sort of mainstream Indian literature. But it seems that the Buddha took this word, from common usage and then gave it a somewhat different twist to the meaning. I would say that the way it connects to remembrance is that in this case, one is bringing to mind, let us say, taking up the sense of bringing to mind. So when one remembers something, one brings a past event to mind. But in the Buddha's use of sati, you're bringing whatever object one has chosen, bringing it to mind and keeping it, retaining it in the mind. So in this case, if one is doing mindfulness of breathing, one is bringing the breath to mind and then retaining the breath in the mind. So in a sense, it's remembering to be aware, but remembering to be aware not remembering the past, but remembering to be aware of the present.
It's just to remember the 7 factors of enlightenment and all the factors of the Eightfold Path and the 5 factors of faith or...
Yeah, but as sati, as a meditative practice, is not to remember in the sense of having them memorized, but to be aware of them when they are occurring in the present. Okay, so let us end for the day. And we could end with, again, with 3 half bows.